everyone a minute just to hop on here really quick, but just a preface for any guests that have just hopped on right now. While we're doing this webinar, you guys can feel free to drop questions in the chat. All guests are going to be muted throughout the presentation. So if you have anything to say, or if you have any questions or comments, just put it in the chat and we'll all answer that at the end of the presentation. But with that being said, let's get rolling. So we're going to get started with overcoming your biggest cybersecurity risk, your employees. Shocking title a little bit, but I think trying to hit home the fact that, with this new remote workforce and what is the new normal, what we're going to get into with the new risks that are arising with working from home. So kind of discussing the threat landscape here. Obviously, when COVID hit, moved almost the entire workforce of just about every industry home. And during that time, cyber attackers saw that as a new opportunity to launch attacks on employees who didn't have the proper cybersecurity training, or, they're at home using their home computers or their home laptops without protection. So as soon as that happened and that shift happened, all of a sudden there was a new force of attackers that are solely attacking the remote workforce. So the U.S. Financial Crimes Enforcement Network has actually warned that there was an uptick in ransomware attacks due to COVID-19. And there's tons of statistics too that show, like, for example, 49% of organizations believe that they're doing an adequate job at avoiding security threats during this crisis. However, a lot of organizations don't know if they have the proper protection in place. So that's what we're going to kind of get into today. Also kind of overarching, it's 2 years later, it's 2022 now. How has this evolved since COVID has hit?
Yeah, I was really amazed back in 2019 when we all got locked down and we started doing these webinars to realize that the hackers had actually broke into the American CDC webpage and were redirecting people looking for information on COVID, back to their cybersecurity, cyber hacking sites.
Right.
It's that pervasive out there.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I do remember when that happened. It's so kind of just showing too how no matter how big or how small your business is, those hackers can get in. I mean, they got into the CDC of all places. So pretty insane. So, discussing going into 2022, that cybersecurity threat is still increasing, as even though some people and some workforces are getting back in office.
Yeah, and we're all getting, doing more videos like this, chat and email for communication. I've even worked with clients on my cell phone. They'll send me texts, in this decentralized workplace. Right when that happened, we had a lot of our clients, still had desktops in the workplace. So they couldn't really send their users home with desktops. They had them working off their home computers. And we're like, all right, wait a minute. If they're going to be on the home computer with the teenager who's doing all the Snapchat and Instagram, let's put an antivirus on there for you. Let's set up a VPN. Let's give you these protective services. So now that your home computer that's part of the corporate network as it attaches to get information is safe and secure.
Right, for sure. And, kind of with going into the next slide, it kind of raises the question of, okay, I have this protection in place, but do I have the strongest line of defense currently? And going into 2022, what else do I need to add to this defense in order to keep my remote workforce safe? So going into this, I'm going to introduce John from Next IT, as well as, let me get your name here, Jeff from Huntress. So you guys are going to kind of deep dive into this content, and I'll let you guys kind of get rolling, but we're going to start off first with what you got to know about these tools.
Yeah, and Jeff is one of our partners here at Next IT. Huntress is an important part of our security stack and using their tools to protect our clients. And yeah, I don't really like the title of this, pay now or pay more later, but it is the reality. It's kind of like the insurance, value proposition, where your return on investment really comes from your advanced tools and training of your employees to help protect your data Same thing you're seeing out there with other vendors, Jeff, and other partners?
Yeah, I mean, again, I agree with you. Like, I hate saying it, but it's a valid statement. Folks will and say clients. There's no, we spoke of like the CDC before, but it's important to understand that the hackers don't care that you're small, large. They're not passing through and saying, well, these guys are only like a carpet company or a cabinet maker. We'll leave them alone. They don't have anything good. They have money, right? They have money to spend to get their stuff back. So there's no company, there's no group that's immune or too small or too big. And the pay more later statement, it's valid in the fact that the pain that you'll go through from a breach, and a breach can be defined in many ways. A breach can be defined as a mailbox getting taken over, or a full out crypto attack. In the pain of that, spending a month on the phone with attorneys, trying to handle the what exactly happened and what was done and what was communicated out to clients, partners, takes a lot of time, and forget just the lost revenue from a breach,
And
just the amount
disruption
of
in business, right?
disruption in business. Somebody said something to me last week that's resonated with me, and I'll continue to tell it to folks because I think it's an important statement, is can a small business handle payroll with a month of no revenue?
Nice one.
How does that impact if you had no revenue for a month? How would you make payroll? And it's a scary statement, but it's valid because I've seen clients that have just been completely wiped out, and it takes at least a month, right? Think of having to restore all your servers back to a later date and the amount of data loss. Think of having to erase and reload all your endpoints. Yeah, it's going to take time. It's going to take a couple weeks, and that's after you've stopped the attack. That's after you've gotten your environment back. We've seen it where clients can't get their environment back for a couple weeks. It's painful.
And we've experienced clients that will click on a phishing attack and they'll download a malware that locks up their system. And they're like, John, what do we do? Don't contact anybody, right? Shut down. We're sending over our technicians. We're going to reload from backup. Hopefully that's the quick fix that gets you up and running, and we'll go through the security scan to make sure those bad implements were not on there before that backup happened.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also been hired to come in after a breach and go through that painful rebuild that you just discussed.
Yeah.
So here's one of the two key features we think we should be all small businesses should be looking at is first improving your security stack. Endpoints, MFA, we've done a specific webinar on multi-factor authentication and how that's becoming important. Increase in the sophistication of these tools with threat detection and response that's happening real time. And who's managing your tools, right? If you're throwing all of this on your normal IT professional from 5-10 years ago that's just used to building the server and the environment, maybe loading antivirus on, they don't have the training to keep up with all the advancements in tools.
Yeah, John. So like one of the things the way I try to describe the need to have, a couple things, right? The need to have a partner that's handling your IT needs, that is a group of trusted experts. And on the other side is a partner that is just a security partner, right? Everybody needs, somebody standing next to them. And the folks that you bring in, Next IT has brought Huntress in, and Huntress is that group of security experts that's all they do. It's not an and job. And I think that's an important thing to remember. Like, who's handling your security? Who are you bringing in? If it's a group that does security and some other things, then, if you're like John, you said, if your person on site is in charge of security, he needs to have a dedicated team of folks that's just handling security to help them out. And that's what Huntress is for Next IT and its clients.
Yeah, and Huntress is just one of our vendors that manages the security stack for Next IT. And then we've got that help desk and a specific person within the help desk that's constantly monitoring this thing real time. Here's some of these new tools. Jeff, if you can kind of give us a quick overview of how this has evolved.
Yeah, so when I always spoke about security to clients that I worked with, I always put it in a few spaces, and these are, like, say, the 3 buckets: email, endpoint, and edge. Email usually gets forgotten about. Everyone runs some kind of agent on their device. Huntress is one of the tools that Next IT runs on its endpoints. Everyone gets a firewall so they can stop it. The next piece of, let's say, edge monitoring is, having a SIM. That SIM SOC term is I don't want to say a newer term, but it's a term that's getting discussed a lot more. And I'll spare you the technical, but it's monitoring your traffic that's coming in and out of your environment, and it's going across your environment. And if you can't see that traffic, you could be on, the great example is, it's Friday night, you're out to dinner. The folks overseas know Friday night we stop working over here in the US, and they're pounding away at our firewalls trying to gain access. Well, if you have some kind of SIM, if you have something monitoring that traffic, it's going to see the 1,000 attempts in under 2 minutes and, raise a red flag, say this is bad. Soon, in the next couple of years, I think SIM and having a SIM SOC solution on even small, medium businesses will be what it'll be best practice. Everyone will have to have it. In terms of email, if you're not providing best-in-class enterprise-level spam filtering to be able to keep the spoofing and the phishing at a minimum, as well as provide user training. I mean, if you think of the vectors, right? Email is the most open vector. Anyone can send an email into your environment. You're not restricting. You can't restrict who's sending email into your environment. Tell the sales team that we're going to restrict who's sending email into your environment. I guarantee they're going to push back on that a little bit. So it's the biggest vector out there. So if you're not educating your users as well as putting a nice tight net over that, and obviously that's a fine line, right? Because the tighter the net, the more that's going to get captured. But you want it to be tight enough that it's going to capture as much as possible, as well as educating your team. And that's the focus of this whole webinar is the employee, right? The employee needs to be educated. When it comes to phishing training, I've always had discussions, and the thing that I've always wanted out of users and out of partners and clients is I want a heightened awareness over your email. I want you scrutinizing your messages that come through, and you're like, I don't think John would send me an email that says, I need some iTunes gift cards. He doesn't seem like an.
Yeah, and we've got some more slides further on in the presentation that talk a lot about that. And this endpoint detection and response is also a big piece of that. The security awareness training is the other big piece. Other than the tools, it's the users. Right. And that has to, go into training, and then we do phishing simulations and then reporting. And, this is kind of an example of training. Everybody's worried about training, right? Do I have to sit in a room for hours? And the training is very simplified, and, we're doing it on a monthly basis with clients, right? And these are 4 to 6 minute videos. Take them, self-paced. At home, even, just on your email or in the office. And there's a quick test at the end. If you paid attention to the training, you can pass the test. The test is there to watch, make sure people just don't launch the training and then walk away.
I could say too, John, speaking to that, I think Next IT has done a great job for us as well in terms of understanding these specific steps in this training as well. Being on call for like, hey, we need to access this library of videos because I want to send it to a couple of new employees that just started here about this remote security. How do I access those? Call away, and then you guys give us full access to that, or all these different documents and PDFs that we also send to our employees as well that cover like that, like the fundamental security principles that, okay, we have new remote employees coming on, they need to know the security information. And Next IT has been great at helping us not only get those employees ready and secure for that remote workforce, but being there available 24/7 when they have questions at home as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the security awareness training used to be optional. It was a nice to have. The insurance companies are now making it mandatory. You have to check a box whether you do or do not do security awareness training with your team. So at the cost that it's being provided, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And I love, and the clients really love the phishing campaigns, right? We'll send emails on a monthly basis, and we do them randomly so they don't know they're coming. And it'll be, well, your UPS package is expected for delivery. One of the common phishing examples I saw, a year or two ago, and we just need some further information before we can deliver your package. And this can be caught by office administrator, end of the day. Oh shoot, I know we're expecting something. I'll just type in my info and then we'll get it here, and it'll be here Monday morning when we need it, right? Those things are really, I think one of the best tools that cyber hackers have to get in. They take advantage of our trust with the email system. And then the spoofing campaigns, right? We've had clients where a hacker will get into an email string internal to your organization and then add their information and say, please send payment here, or our payment, electronic payment address has changed. I've had more than one client say they checked right before clicking the send button with that person, and no, I didn't request $8,593 from you, and I've had other clients that maybe a new accounting manager and an assistant, and the email comes from the CEO of the company, not in that office with them, and they take it as, that's verbatim. I'm just following orders here. And then they find out, oh no, that it was a spoofing caught in the middle of that.
Yeah, John, I've seen 6-figure payments redirected. It's painful.
I've heard of the guy checking before sending that 6-figure payment. I was Northern Michigan, I've seen tens of thousands of payments sent out. And this reporting and analytics that come with the tool is something I review monthly with my clients. And it just shows, how many people opened the email, did they actually click on the link, and who submitted data, and it just goes through. And most of my clients just, bring up the big overall picture and say, we've had 2 people out of, 50 submit data last month. Please go back and do your training. And when it's a phishing report, or a phishing example that comes from Next IT, it'll redirect you to say, all right, we've caught you. This was an example. Don't worry, you didn't actually send any information to the cyber hackers, but we'd like you to, be more attentive during the training.
That's something too. That's quite scary when you said earlier about the 6 figures, those easy hacks that come through on just like a regular basis, but those numbers are substantial. Those are huge numbers, and just an easy, simple way to get in, to hack and to transfer that much money is just, that's insanity.
Well, you think about real estate, right? How booming the real estate business is in this country right now. And all of those payments are made through wire transfers. I've talked to different agents and title companies that say, somebody had hacked into their system and tried to redirect that payment. And they all are over the top with, we will never change our, location we're sending payment. If you have any questions, please call us on the telephone and we'll verify everything. People are just excited to get that new house or that new business office and get it done.
Yeah, I mean, they used to, right? It used to be where you got phished, you put something in and it was an immediate, where things happen. Now what they do is they gain access. They lurk inside your mailbox until they see the traffic they want to, and then they hijack that traffic and start the conversation somewhere else. You don't know any different. And next thing you know, your threat actors are talking to your partners. They're gaining their trust, and then they're completing that payment. And then the partner reaches out to you when they don't get what they bought a month later, and you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then you realize this is what happened. Someone else has been in your mailbox or a user. They always go after, a certain group. They go on LinkedIn, they find the financial folks, they find the C-level, the C-suite, and those are the ones they go after.
We've seen it where we were brought in after an attack happened, and the hacker got on the system, but he just waited, right? He waited over 60 days, got higher level security passwords into the network. Not only did he lock down their server, he locked down all their backups, right? So now their backups were invalid.
Oh, that's awful.
So that's what they do now, right? It's exactly what you said, John. It's they gain access, and the reason why they lurk is they want your backups, right? If they know if they take you down immediately that you're just going to restore to last week's backups. But if they know they've been in your environment for 30 to 60 days, which is the usual, I'm missing a word, but it's the usual disaster recovery. The DR
Metrics, I call it, right?
Yeah, it's usually the DR template is, have backups that give you the ability to restore up to 60 days. So they wait and they gain and they keep access. So they know if you restore back from 30 days, because most teams are like, we'll just go back to last month and we're good. I'm still here. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Thank you. You've gone back 30 days. I don't have to do any more work. I'm still here.
That's something we implemented 4, possibly 5 years ago, was not only managing the backups for our clients, but actually doing restoration verification, right? We're going into those backups and making sure they're valid, and doing that on a regular basis to make sure that's there, and
John, I've always said, and some of the people on my team hate this statement, but after they say they hate it, they steal it. If you're not testing your backups and you're not testing your DR setups, your DR plan, they're just a piece of paper. They're useless. If you're not testing your backups and your DR plan, they're no good. They're just pieces of paper.
And smaller companies I was working with before, they said, no, we're good. We're doing our backups to a USB drive. That's going to be fine. We cycle those every couple of weeks. And
Thank you.
That hack jumps right off that server onto that USB drive. It's got the whole environment, implementing this 3-2-1 security protocol, right? 3 copies, 2 separate locations, 1 off-site. We're even using an encrypted, replication from like device to like device on a private network, because the hackers know you've got a backup device out there, right? It's usually a Windows share, an SMB or a Samba type language that communicates to a NAS. They can see that, hey, they've got a NAS. Let's sit here a while and make sure we can get access to that too.
Well, that became the statement where the technical folks stole the plumbing term, right? Air gap. And that's what helped people understand. Do you have an air gap in your backups? And that's what made people realize, oh, I understand what you're saying. There needs to be something in place to prevent that jump. Because like you said, that's what they want. They want your backups. It's a revenue source, right? Ransomware used to be something that was just out in the world, and now it's a business. If they have expectations of how much they're going to make from encrypting. Ransomware is a service, right? You can go insert in the dark web and you can buy ransomware. Which one do you want? What flavor of ransomware do you want?
Yeah, I hear for $60,000 you can get it with support.
Yeah, there are support teams. There are help desks. It's crazy. Wow. There are help desks, and then when you get encrypted, you can call into the help desk to get your stuff back.
And the other important thing I see here on the second slide here is the culture, right? The hackers now have a more aggressive culture.
Mhm.
We have to develop that security culture within our employees. I worked for one of the large internet providers years ago and wanted to take some work home and work on, some of my contact lists and things like that. And I plugged a USB drive into my computer to just download a file of contacts. Luckily, I was friends with the IT manager who happened to be walking behind me. He goes, "John, you realized you signed an employee confidentiality
Mhm.
document that says you're not allowed to plug devices into our network." And I'm like, "Okay, let me get that out." He goes, "If you just need to send something to yourself, email it to yourself. That goes through our security tools." I've heard, really horrible cases of people buying inexpensive thumb drives on Amazon, potentially a known name, worse yet, even a non-known name. Hackers are putting the code right on brand new thumb drives.
John, what about the folks that find the USB at like, hey, I found this USB at
The chamber event.
Panera.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
Or
at a
Panera,
chamber
worse.
event. I was at Panera and I found this USB. I wonder if there's some fun stuff on there. And like you said, I'm going to insert that into my work computer when I get back to work. And then you just, you can see everything come to a complete stop. When you talk about culture, right? The things that used to prevent people from making decisions that would help keep them secure was, I don't want to impact my users. We don't have the budget. Now now people are realizing, now groups are realizing we have to impact our users, because if they're not impacted now, they're going to be impacted afterwards. So we have to accept a new culture of security first, and we have to open the books for the budget, because if not, can we survive a breach, a full out breach?
I work with a
Nobody's
utility.
nobody's immune.
Yeah, I work with a utility company in my area, and they've got a security manager there. And his statement to his employees is, "I'll guarantee if you don't respond to an email in a timely fashion, you won't get fired. But if you bring in a virus into our network, I got no guarantees."
Mhm. I think that example is quite funny too of, if everyone attending this presentation, if you could take something away with this as well, besides the free offer we're going to be giving you. Next is, if you find a thumbnail drive at Panera, don't pick it up. Don't pick it up.
Scrutinize everything.
Yes. And also, before we move on to the next slide too, interesting that you bring up how the thought of, if I get hacked, it's okay, I have my backups. But what happens when those hackers have been in there for that long and they have your backups as well? So kind of hitting home the point of why you need that stronger initial defense, because once they're in there, they can be harnessing that data for an extended period of time to where those backups aren't really going to help you in the end. So in order to kind of help you guys, the attendees, make sure your defense is strong, we wanted to offer you guys a free network scan and security review. So to redeem that offer, you're just going to email John at next-it.net. But also don't worry about writing this down or anything, because we'll go ahead and send you guys a recap email as well with John's email, as well as the webinar recording too. So you guys can feel free to send this to your remote employees, send it to everyone in your organization, send it to your friends. But this will also be posted on our YouTube channel as well. So make sure to check that out. We have other cybersecurity videos as well that we've been putting out there monthly on different topics like two-factor authentication, the cloud, and a lot more. So I want to thank John and Jeff for joining us today. But for all the attendees, just be on the lookout for that email for your free network scan. But otherwise, we hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Take care. Thank you, folks.
Bye.